Hello, everyone. Welcome back to part 2 of the hunt for the Long Island serial killer, also known as Jack the Ripper of Long Island. This vicious serial killer has been dumping bodies on the side of a busy highway in Long Island, and he's been hiding right under the noses of everyone. The investigation began in May of 2010 when a young woman named Shannon Gilbert went missing after visiting a home in a gated community of Long Island. 8 months after she went missing without a trace, police in Suffolk County finally started searching for her 8 months later. And they turn up 4 bodies bound and hidden inside of burlap on Gilgo Beach along Ocean Beach Parkway on Long Island. The case goes cold, and police don't seem too worried since all of these women have a history of working as escorts. It's terrible. But then a bombshell is dropped. 6 more bodies are found along the same area a year later. Cell phone data from the victims' phone calls on the night they went missing indicates the killer used burner phones to contact them. And those burner phones have led investigators to Long Island. Investigators think that this killer is local. Today, we're going to learn how alleged police corruption delayed finding this madman, and we finally learn what led to the suspected Long Island serial killer's capture. The details are seriously going to leave you shocked. Whew, that was a lot.
That was a lot.
We are talking about Gone Girls, the Long Island serial killer. It's released in April of 2025 on Netflix. It's a 3-part episode, and today's episode is covered basically in episode 2 and 3 of the 3-part documentary. I want to say, if you haven't listened to the first part, go listen to it. We released it last week. It's a good one. And the way they did this documentary, we both really enjoyed. I'm Jen, by the way. I don't know if I've introduced myself. If you don't recognize me from last week's episode.
I'm Tina.
And they did a really, really good job putting this documentary together. The case is shocking how long it took to eventually catch the suspect. It's not meant for kids, this episode. It's not meant for teenagers. I just want to say some of the stuff that we're going to talk about later is very graphic.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
But this isn't just a normal hunt for a serial killer.
No.
There is so much more going on here.
There really is.
And it really starts, I believe, in episode 2, where it just, like, you are glued. And your jaw is probably dropped the whole time, like mine is, when you learn of all this stuff that's going on in the background.
Shannon Gilbert went missing, and we, in the last episode, stated that her body had been later found 19 months later after she went missing, was found in a marshy area of Oak Beach in Long Island, which is near Gilgo Beach. Her death was ruled as undetermined. The family hired a forensic pathologist who said that it was in fact a homicide, but to this day, her death is still ruled as undetermined. We just want to throw that out there. After Shannon's body is found, we hear on the documentary from a journalist for Newsday. His name is Gus Garcia Roberts, and he says that things in this case were just not adding up. And he started looking into corruption within this police department, within the Suffolk County Police Department and the district attorney's office.
He says it's one of the largest law enforcement jurisdictions in the United States, and it's one of the highest paid police forces in the U.S. He says working here is like hitting the lottery in police among police departments. And I wrote, what a great analogy. He also says these positions come with a lot of power.
One of the positions that he's talking about is the position of police commissioner. At the time, there was a guy named Richard Dormer who was the police commissioner, and he had been telling people there was one killer responsible for all of these bodies, for all these 10 victims that had been found along Gilgo Beach. He didn't have any facts to support this. He was saying, what are the odds of more than one killer operating in the same geographic area?
Okay, I can see his logic, but I'm not an investigator. And it is kind of nuts to think that there could be more than one serial killer criming or hunting, I think is the word that they use,
Yeah.
in the same kind of smallish area, right? Like this Gilgo Beach area. But we know it does happen. It's happened before. There's definitely been more than one serial killer hunting in the same area.
Not this podcast, but later on, we will also cover a story in another state in the United States where there were multiple operating at the same time. So the DEA, meanwhile, Thomas Boda, disagreed with the police commissioner Richard Dormer's theory. The DA thought that the first 4 victims found, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello, were found intact skeletons found and in burlap, while the other remains that were found later, despite being in the exact same area, were not intact skeletons and they weren't wrapped in burlap. Some of their body parts had been found in other locations. So Thomas Boda didn't believe that there was a link. He thought there were multiple people operating in this one area.
In my notes, yes, I can absolutely see this logic too. However, we did talk about how the Golden State Killer in one of our earlier episodes, the Weasel, didn't quite stick to his MO either.
That's right.
He adapted. He changed based on what worked for him and what didn't work for him. So it is fair to consider that it could be one serial killer because it happened before and it could happen again.
That's a good point, Tina. I didn't even think about that.
Yep.
Look at you, bravo. So, a few weeks after Shannon Gilbert's body was found, the police commissioner Richard Dormer retired, and a new executive named Steve Ballone came in. Ballone was interviewed for the show, and he says that Jim Burke was recommended to him for the chief of the police department. So Jim Burke had beforehand worked with Thomas Boda, the DA. So if you're thinking about it, you'd be like, oh, they've worked together. That might work pretty well. It's a good little pairing.
Yeah, they say he made about a 4-rank jump.
Whoa.
Jim Burke.
Whoa.
He went from being an inspector to, I believe they called it a DA's officer.
He was the investigator for the DA's office.
Okay, and then jumped all the way to chief of a department.
That's a big jump.
Huge jump. 4-rank jump is what they say.
Newsday journalist Gus Garcia Roberts says that the new police chief had more than a dozen internal affairs complaints when he took this new position and was known to be a troubled officer involved with scandal. Well,
whoa.
Yeah. Listen to this. Turns out that the DA, according to the show, Thomas Boda, and his new police chief, Jim Burke, were in fact good friends. They jump back on the show to a case way back in the 70s. Back in April of 1979, a 13-year-old boy had been killed and had been beaten and trampled to death and had rocks stuffed down his throat. The young prosecutor at the time, the show says, was Mr. Spoda. And Spoda, according to the show, pinned it on a Boy Scout who gave a confession in the back of a police car. But his confession didn't make any actual logistical sense.
So there was a sneaker print apparently on the body of the boy who was killed, and the logic that they used was that boys wear sneakers. So they started questioning teenagers off the streets to try to get a confession. And again, they say his confession doesn't make sense. And like Jen said, it was so bad. And they said it just wouldn't hold up in court.
Yep. So to bolster this story, the show says that Spoda found a kid named Jim Burke, who was a 16-year-old juvenile delinquent at the time.
And I wrote, OMG, I am floored right now when I'm watching this show.
Yeah.
No freaking way. I'm going to stop real quick and say, I mentioned this in the first part. This is such a good series. Such a well put together series.
Yeah.
The way they pieced the story together is incredible. I was invested the whole way through. And at this moment, I'm on the edge of my seat because I cannot believe this is a true story. It's so ridiculous, ludicrous.
Yeah, Luda.
It sounds like a movie.
Yeah, it really does.
Unbelievable. Okay, back to the story.
Yep. Spoda found a kid named Jim Burke, who was 16 at the time, And Burke's word became a weapon for Spoda, the show says, and two brothers ended up getting sentenced to 9 years to life for killing this teenage boy. And at the time, Rob Trotta was a detective with the Suffolk County Police Department. And he says that the DA's office in Suffolk County had a 95% confession rate on homicides. 95% confession rate.
It's not normal, I don't think.
No. You're not going to get 95% of people confessing. In my opinion, that indicates something else was going on.
I wrote, I feel sick because I'm reading your notes and I'm watching the show and I'm wondering, did innocent kids go to prison?
After this all happened, Burke and Spoda remained friends. And Spoda took Burke under his wing, and then he took over as chief of police. So
Chief of police.
Chief of police. So
the most powerful positions in the county.
One of the two most powerful. So you have the DA's office and you have the police department running that city. After taking over, Suffolk County stopped working with neighboring counties on the case. After Burke started working as chief of police, they no longer wanted to collaborate with the state police. They didn't want to collaborate with the local sheriff's office anymore. And they stopped working with the FBI on this Gilgo Beach case. It's so bad. In my notes, I wrote what the actual clean rating, so I'm keeping it at that.
Appreciate it.
We hear from a Suffolk County Police Commissioner who was in that position from 2015 to 2017. His name is Timothy. And he says that detectives were no longer, in fact, allowed to give information to the FBI Behavioral Analysis Unit, the behavioral unit, which does the profiling. And this was the doing of the new police chief, Burke, and the DA, Spoda.
Red flag.
100%. You want as many eyes on this as possible.
You want the biggest and best eyes on this.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You want to solve this crime.
Why are you no longer wanting this outside help? Why are you wanting to keep it all in-house? What are you trying to hide?
It would be funny if the FBI said, would you be willing to do a lie detector test?
Do you want to do a polygraph?
Would you be willing to do a polygraph? And if the police chief said, no, thank you, then maybe the FBI could have said,
red flag.
Red flag.
We hear from a detective with the Suffolk County Police Department named John Oliva. He says that everyone in the department was issued a memo by the then police chief, James Burke. And in that memo, it stated when a member of the service is contacted by a member of an outside law enforcement agency, whether it be local, state, or federal, or a prosecutorial agency other than the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office regarding operational or investigative issues, notifications, or requests, the member must notify a supervisor at the first possible instance. The supervisor will then notify his or her commanding officer. And in my opinion, that is a red flag. That is sketchy. Why do they no longer want all these other people involved?
100%. Are they friends with the serial killer? Who are they trying to protect? It's not the citizens.
No, it's not.
If you're not involving as many resources as possible, I don't think you're doing your job to protect the citizens the way you should be.
Exactly. That's why they waited 8 months to search for Shannon Gilbert after she was reported missing. That's why, remember in the first episode, they had said these people are just prostitutes and it's part of their high-risk lifestyle. They're basically putting themselves in these situations. Like, what are we protecting here?
Yep.
Then a woman comes forward saying that she met Chief Burke at a party in Oak Beach in August of 2011, and she had sex with him, for which he paid her for. This is a bombshell. And in my notes, I said they're in on it. This woman says he was aggressive, and Newsday journalist Gus Garcia Roberts says throughout Burke's career, he had multiple internal affairs investigations into suspected drug abuse. He carried on relationships with sex workers.
Allegedly.
The internal affairs investigators at one point met with Burke, and he brought in his own attorney with him. Guess who his lawyer was?
His friend.
Tom
Mr.
Spoda,
That's right.
the DA.
Oh my gosh.
Holy moly. So the police chief,
I have my hands on my head right now.
she does. The police chief is being represented in this interview with, or as part of this investigation with Internal Affairs by the district attorney. I feel like this right here is just made for conspiracy theorists.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yup.
So Rob Trotta, who is a detective with the Suffolk County Police Department, says, you have a person killing prostitutes and a police chief who is paying for sex with prostitutes. In my opinion, if I hear that right there, I don't think that he truly cares about solving this case. And it also makes you wonder, is he involved?
It sounds so bad.
Yeah. So we go on in the documentary. And remember, the documentary is called Gone Girls, the Long Island Serial Killer on Netflix. We go on to Smithtown, Long Island, and it's December of 2012. A young guy named Christopher Loeb, who, according to the show, is a drug addict, breaks into a car and steals a duffel bag. Now this guy has just bad luck. He has such bad luck.
I laughed out loud when you wrote that. That's rotten luck.
It is. It's such rotten luck. So he breaks into a car. He steals a duffel bag. Now the duffel bag was filled with porn, a gun belt, sex toys, and union cards that say Chief of Department. Well, it turns out the bag belonged to Jimmy Burke, the chief of police.
Rotten luck indeed.
It really is. So Christopher Loeb is arrested. And according to Rob Trotta, who is the detective with the Suffolk County Police Department, Burke goes into a room with Loeb, slaps Loeb around, and says he's going to give Loeb a hot shot of heroin. Now, a hot shot is apparently something that can kill you.
Doesn't sound good.
No, I feel like anything with the word hot shot is never a good idea.
No.
Loeb says that Burke threatened to kill him with a hot shot, threatened to kill his mother, threatened to do terrible sexual things to his mother, chained him to the floor for 10 hours, and hit him. And on this show, we see a picture of Loeb after this, and clearly something has gone on with his face.
Oh yeah, he looks bad.
It's rough. So Newsday journalist Gus Garcia Roberts says that the feds knew about the beating within a few days and started investigating, but no Suffolk County police officers would talk to them about what happened.
I wrote, how is this entire department so rotten? You don't have one good guy who's not willing to stand up and not put up with this crap.
It's one of those things we talked about in the last episode, though. So if your boss is not on the up and up, and let's say he's like, hey, if you tell somebody, I'm going to fire you, I'm going to make your life a living hell. Like, what would you really tell?
Sure, that's one thing. But if you're an officer witnessing another officer beating someone, you're not going to say anything.
2 years later, somebody did, in fact, finally say something. It took more than 2 years until someone who had been in the room cracked and told the FBI that Chief Burke had gone in there and beaten Loeb. And on December 9th of 2015, Chief Burke is arrested and indicted for civil rights abuses and cover-up. And Burke was eventually convicted and sentenced to 4 years in prison.
Boom! Because you can't be a bad guy and expect to not have karma kick you in the rear.
I think Taylor Swift made a song about that. We need to point this out. So the show says, through his lawyer, James Burke denied any allegations against him regarding his testimony in the John Pius case. Now that's the case of the boy back in the 1970s, and his handling of the Gilgo Beach murder cases, specifically denying he referred to the killings of sex workers as misdemeanor murders. Burke called any allegation that he was involved in the killings absolutely false and absurd, and refutes all claims a woman known as Leanna regarding an encounter in Oak Beach in 2011, and denies ever meeting her. Had to put that out there because it popped up on the screen on the show. Yeah. Spoda, remember Spoda's the DA, was then convicted of obstruction to justice. And he spent 3 years in a federal prison. And the show states, again, we have to say it, that representatives for the former DA, Thomas Spota, did not respond to requests for comment. While all this is going on, mind you, the killer of these 10 people, plus we don't know how Shannon Gilbert died.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? We broken highwayed, and found naked in a marshland with her jeans and phone and wallet and ID and super far away from her body.
Hi, everybody. Did you forget we're talking about a serial killer case? Because I kind of did.
Yeah.
There's so much scandal and craziness and twists and turns in this thing that it's crazy that I forgot that we're still hunting for a serial killer at this point with all this mess going around.
The killer is still out there.
Killing, criming. This is also something that someone points out in the show. They suspect that the police department was so busy trying to keep their bad guys out of prison that they didn't have time to properly investigate the serial killer cases.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a serial killer roaming around, you know.
I need a thesaurus at this point to come up with more words than ridiculous and ludicrous. There are not enough words to describe this insane mess
that is going on. We're moved to Port Jefferson, Long Island in 2015. Where a former sex worker, Nikki Brass, is interviewed. I have watched multiple shows where this woman has been interviewed over the years. Like I had said in episode 1 of this case, I have been obsessed with the Long Island serial killer case since it started in 2010. I've watched every documentary that's been made. I read tons of stuff on it. It's fascinating to me. Nikki tells the show that she had a date with a guy she thought was the Long Island serial killer. She says that he was a massive guy. Now, remember we had talked about somebody else stating that one of the women, Amber Costello,
Amber's friend
Dave had said before that the guy who had threatened Amber shortly before she went missing had told her, "I'll be seeing you." Nikki says this guy is massive. And at first on this date, he was normal. And then he asked her if she had ever heard about the Gilgo Beach killings.
Red flag.
Red flag for sure. She says at that point, his body language changed and he seemed excited to talk about this.
Oh, I gotta chill.
He would say girl number 1, girl number 2. She says that he would say this, girl number 1, girl number 2, when he was referring to the victims. And she says that he asked her, how does she think the killer gets rid of the bodies at night without being noticed?
Oh my gosh.
And he told her he lives right by there. Then asked her to go home with him. Hell no.
He's bold.
If you think about it, if this person truly is this killer and he's gotten away with 10 people, potentially 11.
Now his ego's out of control. He thinks he's never getting caught.
Exactly. At this point, Nikki tells the show that she said she had a bad gut feeling about this guy and left. She said that at the time she was on probation, so she wasn't going to go to the police, which I can understand.
Oh, yes.
You know, you're not going to go to the police.
Which I think is terrible. I mean, you should definitely be able to feel safe enough in whatever position you're in to go get help from authorities.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, though, if she had gone to the police department we just talked about, nothing would have come out of that.
Probably not.
In 2018, the former head of the Long Island FBI, her name is Geraldine Hart, steps in as the new police commissioner. And we heard from her throughout this episode, and I really liked her. She seemed like she truly cared about these women.
She had something the others lacked, compassion.
As soon as she took over as this new police commissioner, she started the Gilgo Beach case again. She said that all these girls matters and the victim's family mattered. And finally, there's some hope.
I wrote, who run the world? Girls.
I find this fascinating. Here we go. Shout out Paul Holes. He would be proud.
He would be so proud.
On this case, they started using genetic genealogy from one of the victims, and it was run through a public ancestry site. And a genetic match was found, and Jane Doe number 6, who was found on Gilgo Beach, was identified as Valerie Mack. At this point, the police department basically has nothing to lose. Like, we need to catch this guy. It's been since 2010 when these bodies were found. They released some new information to the public. that's never heard of before. So they released pictures of a leather belt with the initials HM or WH on it that was found at one of the scenes and didn't belong to any of the victims. They also go back to 2011 when Amber Costello's friend Dave gave a description of a guy that he said was an ogre-like man. Dave says the suspect was over 6 feet tall. He would guess 350 pounds in his words. He says beady ass eyes. The police finally start taking this serious. And Dave gave police at the time a description of the suspect's truck, a green Chevy Avalanche.
Boom. Dave's quote here is hilarious. He says, "How many effing 6'8" giants are driving around in Massapequa in a Chevy Avalanche?"
Yeah. I really like Dave.
I do too.
But it's terrible. He gave them this in
A long time ago.
2011. And we are at this
Ridiculous.
point in 2018.
Mhm.
Tina, that's 7 years.
Yes, they had the information they needed all along.
This keeps moving to 2022 when Robert Kolker, who is the author of a book called Lost Girls, An Unsolved American Mystery. It's been 12 years since the Gilgo 4 had been found, and there were still no arrests, okay? Geraldine Hart, the former FBI lady turned police commissioner, she steps down, and a guy named Rodney Harrison takes over as commissioner. And I really liked Rodney.
Mm-hmm.
He formed a task force with multiple agencies, and he believed the case could be solved. He wanted as many eyes as possible on this case, which they should have been doing
From the beginning.
all along. Then there was also a new DA. Finally, this guy's name was Ray Tierney. He made the decision to digitize everything.
Digitizing the evidence made it easy for them to search for things. It's such a smart move.
So police start revisiting the interview with Dave Schaller, who was the friend of Amber Costello. He had told them that at the time it was a first generation Chevy Avalanche, which is a huge clue.
Yep.
Huge clue.
Mm-hmm.
And the police department determined that this Avalanche would in fact be the key, and it was. They found a first generation Chevy Avalanche owner who fit the physical description provided by Dave Schaller, and also figured out that the person of interest lived in Massapequa Park, the area which the suspect's burner phones had been linked to many, many years before. And listen to this, he worked in and around the area in Manhattan where some of the victims had been picked up. Holy smokes.
That's too many coincidences.
March 14th of 2022, they have a suspect name. Finally. And this is only 6 weeks after the task force had been formed.
Yeah.
In
Good
6
work.
weeks, they did more than all of those years.
Yep.
And they had a suspect, and his name was Rex Heuermann. Rodney Harrison, who is the new police commissioner, says they started looking into Rex's lifestyle. He was an architect in Midtown Manhattan. He was married. He was a father. He lived in Massapequa Park, and they checked Rex's personal cell phone data and compared it to the burner phones used to call the victim. And turns out, listen to this, everywhere Rex's phone was, so were those burner phones.
And again, too many coincidences.
May 19th of 2023, Rex apparently added minutes to a burner phone. Investigators learned that he set up anonymous email accounts where he was contacting escorts. And at that point, police put around-the-clock surveillance on Rex Heuermann.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, they saw him discard a pizza box. And inside, there was some pizza crust. Remember those 5 hairs that we had mentioned?
Yep.
The DNA from that pizza crust was compared to those 5 hairs that they had found at the December 2010 Gilgo Beach case. And they matched. It was a game changer.
13 years of investigating these cases and 10 months of following him. And they finally got a match.
Can you imagine how they must have felt? Like how awesome that was?
Amazing, especially because you have new people in charge. It must have been like a breath of fresh air to have some real leadership here.
Yeah. And I feel like even the police officers who they interview on this show, there was this relief that these new people who were on the up and up were there. They wanted to work.
They want to find some answers.
Yeah.
And get this person.
And also get some like closure for the families.
Yeah. I really loved also how the families Throughout this episode, the families of the girls who are found on Gilgo Beach all band together, kind of like their own little family.
Yep.
Yeah, that was really sweet to see.
We go to July 13th of 23 in New York City when Rex is leaving work. He owns like an architectural company in Manhattan, and he is arrested outside of his architectural firm. And police say he was not surprised at all. Friends of Amber Costello say that when they saw Rex's mugshot, they knew it was him. That was the guy who was in their house.
They show footage of him, of Rex in handcuffs being walked by authorities, and he is exactly how Dave described him 13 years earlier. A giant ogre. He just towers over the police and the investigators who are surrounding him.
And the next day, on July 14th of 23, Rex is indicted for the murders of Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. They go over to Rex's house.
This is crazy.
And the show speaks to a Mr. D. Valerie.
Is it Ettany? He had a great
It
name.
was good, though.
Yeah.
Who was Rex Heuermann's neighbor. And he says, I always love it when they interview the neighbors.
Me
Like
too.
the ones on the Golden State Killer one.
Yep. They have some good information.
Yeah.
They've been living next to these creeps for probably decades.
Oh, yeah.
They know all the things about these weirdos.
The next door neighbor says, quote, oh my God, I've lived next door to that thing for 28 years. And I think that's a great way of describing him.
Yep.
He says Rex creeped people out. Kids didn't want to trick or treat at his house on Halloween. He was just the guy that you stay away from.
Mm-hmm. We learn that Rex had been living in the same house that he grew up in. But they describe it as a dilapidated house, and they show the house.
It's
on
falling
TV.
apart.
It's just this neighborhood with these other really well kept up homes. It just sticks out.
It does. It's a really nice neighborhood in general.
Yeah, you hear that the homeowners in that area take a lot of pride in their homes, but Rex just kind of let his home fall apart. He didn't spend any time on fixing it up, and it really did just stick out like a sore
And he's an
thumb.
architect.
The show says people are not shocked that the serial killer was the creep on the block who didn't take care of his house.
Every time Tina drives down the street now, if she sees a house that's all like falling apart, she's gonna be like, a serial killer lives.
I rarely have been in a neighborhood or have talked to people who live in a neighborhood with a house like that and say that person is creepy. We don't go there. I love that he was an architect. I mean, how ironic.
Right?
How ironic. The show interviews a lady named Muriel who worked with Rex.
And she basically worked hand in hand with Rex for 6 years, she said. On the show, when she's interviewed, she says she had chills when she found out because she would often work with him alone. She said they would drive together. She said one time her friend, who was apparently an interior designer, told her about a strange occurrence with Rex. Listen to this. She said her friend was taking measurements of Rex's Long Island house, which we all know needs some updates. And when she got to the basement, he blocked the door and would not let her into that basement. And he said it was because he had a lot of guns in the basement, but it was just weird.
I have questions. First off, why was there an interior designer at this home? I feel like there should have been an exterior designer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, did she ever work in the home? Did she just go in there, take measurements, and then never went back? Did they ever do anything? I mean, what happened? Why was she in the home? Did they ever ask her to fix up the home? I need to know more.
You need the deets.
I want the deets.
As the kids say these days.
Okay, Muriel also says when Rex was younger, he had told her that he used to work at the parks department or as a ranger for the beach area. And that's how he knows that Gilgo Beach area so well.
Red flag.
Too many coincidences again.
Uh-huh. Rex's Long Island house is basically torn apart.
I mean, basically, it's already torn apart without it being torn apart.
There is mountains of evidence coming out of this house. We're told that over 300 subpoenas for Rex's house were issued in a 12-day period. Close to 300 guns were in the basement.
What the heck are you doing with 300 guns?
Apparently waiting for the zombie apocalypse. I don't know.
300 guns?
That's nuts.
Who has room for 300 guns?
This guy.
That has to take up
This
the
guy.
entire basement.
I'm sure. Police recovered laptops, recovered some evidence on them. We will get into what they recovered on them, and Tina's going to earmuff for that part. They find out that he searched, or someone in the home searched for things about the Gilgo Beach killer on the laptops. Like, why has the killer not been caught?
I mean, I have that question too. Can you imagine our search history?
Oh, God. He Googled things about the victims. He Googled things about the victims' families. Rex Heuermann has a wife.
Crazy.
Her name is Asa. They married in the 90s. She had a son from a previous marriage. Later, Rex and Asa had a daughter together. Police don't think that the family knew what Rex was doing. Through credit card records, they determined that Rex was supposedly killing these women. And I use supposedly because he has not been convicted. He was killing these women, supposedly, when the family was out of town during the case of the Gilgo Beach 4. Remember?
That's exactly what you said earlier.
Mhm.
Summer vacation time, families are leaving town. His family was probably out going on vacation, but why was he not going with them?
Because he's sketchy. After the arrest, Asa told the news that she knew nothing about the cases and her husband wouldn't do this. And after his arrest, Asa filed for divorce and then moved back into the house. So the investigators got everything they needed in the 12 days, and she and the kids moved back into the house.
Nuts.
And they started asking for Rex's guns to be brought back into the house. I want those 300 guns.
What were they going to do with the 300 guns? And they moved back into the house where these murders could have happened, because they didn't happen where the bodies had been found, according to authorities. They happened somewhere else.
Yep.
They could have happened there. I don't understand how they moved back into that house.
I don't get it either. On the show, we hear from the wife of Rex's cousin.
Ooh, this was a good interview.
She says it's super hard to reconcile that he, meaning Rex, was able to disguise himself so well. She says that he organized family reunions, but it was truly a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde scenario. She said that Rex had anger issues as a child. He would walk around on thin ice around his father, but then he ended up living in the exact same house that he grew up in.
It sounds like he didn't have a great childhood, and they reiterate that he was living in the home that he grew up in, and it hadn't changed in 60 years. So I guess that interior designer didn't do anything to it. He kept the house like a capsule of time from his childhood. That's so crazy. I don't understand why he would want to live in a home that maybe had such terrible memories for him.
We hear from a former friend of Rex who apparently met Rex in second grade, named John, who says that Rex was a super quiet kid. He was very introverted. He was bullied at school. He was bullied by his dad. Everybody basically believes that Rex Heuermann was living this like dual life. He was an architect, but he also had this secret life. The DNA of Rex Heuermann was entered into a statewide database, but what I think is truly terrifying about all this is that he owns multiple properties around the country. He owns property in New Jersey, South Carolina, and Las Vegas. And it makes you wonder how many more victims are out there.
Was he going to these places? Was he criming over there?
We don't know. Fast forward to January 16th of 2024, when Rex Heuermann is charged with Maureen Brainerd Barnes' death. And that link comes through DNA. The Suffolk County Sheriff's Office started interviewing, at this point, sex workers, and found out there were at least 12 women who claimed to have had interactions with Rex. Thank goodness these women were not harmed. At that point, another search warrant was issued for Rex's house. This one focused on the basement. where all those guns were found. And then they did another search near where partial remains of some of the Gilgo Beach victims had been found in Manorville. Now, around Manorville, Valerie Mack's torso had been found in 2000, and Jessica Taylor's torso was found in 2003, and the rest of both of their bodies had been found on Gilgo Beach. The search then expanded even more to an area about 25 northwards towards like the Hamptons area of Long Island, where a woman's body was found in 1983. Now, she was later identified as Sandra Castilla. And investigators wanted to know, was this 1993 homicide linked to Rex Heuermann? So in June of 24, the DA, Raymond Tierney, announced more charges against Rex Heuermann for the 1993 murder of Sandra Castilla and the 2003 murder of Jessica Taylor. On Sandra in 1993, there were apparently some hairs found on her body that were sent to a lab and tested, and turns out they were linked to Rex Heuermann. At the time, it's believed that potentially Sandra had been working as an escort as well. If Rex killed Sandra, that means, listen to this, he spent 30 years living and hunting on Long Island. And as we mentioned, he had homes in Vegas. He had homes in New Jersey, in South Carolina. 30 years from what is now believed to be his first case to his last case with Amber Costello.
Yeah, reminds you of the Golden State Killer.
It really does.
Eluding police for decades.
At this point, investigators release that Rex Heuermann kept a manifesto of 6 of the murders, is what we're told on the show, in what investigators called a planning document that was found on a computer in his house, which, according to the show, he created in 2000 and had since deleted, but police, doing what they do, they were able to recover it, thankfully. So he had a list on this document of things he would need for killings, tips for doing it better, and so forth. So Tina, for this list, you're gonna want to cover your ears because holy smokes, this reminds me of like Dexter, if Dexter were to make like a kill list.
Okay.
In the document that police say they found on Rex Heuermann's computer, listen to this. The document states problems, DNA, tire marks, bloodstains, fingerprints, witnesses, trace sources of supplies, foot, shoe prints, police stock, truck stock, fingerprints and gloves, plastic bags matched to box, hairs and fiber. Supplies, booties, lye, acid, police scanner, rope, cord, saw, cutting, hair nets, photo film, burn cans, medical gloves, bags, tape, tarps, drop cloths, foam drain cleaner, ratchet cargo strap, large electric clips, body wash, wipes. DS, which I'm assuming is disposal site or dump site, is what I'm attributing DS to be. It says DS1 Mill Road, DS2 ? Dumpster site, next time recon dumpster locations. Valerie Mack and Jessica Taylor's bodies were found in 2 of these sites. The list goes on to say things to remember. This gets me. Sound travels, such as bird outside. Control the amount of air in and out to control the noise made. Get sleep before hunt. Too tired creates problems. Too many hit hard to take down. His grammar's not very good. Consider a hit to the face or neck next time for takedown. More sleep and noise control equals more playtime. And this is disgusting.
Gross.
Use push pins to hang drop cloths from ceiling, not tape. Use heavy rope for neck. Light rope broke under stress of being tightened.
I said, how is this guy an architect? He can't even spell. He spells creates, CREATS. Like creates. Heavy is spelled HEVEY, heavy. And instead of tightened, he spells tight end, like the footballers.
The footballers?
My husband's going to be proud that I associated that position with the correct sport, by the way.
Tight,
Footballers.
Tight end.
Are those soccer people? You're the worst.
I just made like a motion of like butt cheeks.
Yep, she sure did. But I'm right. A tight end is a footballer. Or football or soccer, people.
I was going to say a footballer is soccer people. A football player.
Football player.
There you go.
Football
Tina.
player. That's what I meant.
Okay. The document goes on to say prep, setup, stage,
Oh my gosh, I forgot we're not done.
holding area, build table, crossbar, hard point. Hard point, meanwhile, refers to a sexual suspension bondage.
I cannot.
It goes on to say dispose of the following: tools and devices, T-1, clothes and personal items, drop cloths, wipes and towels, props, toys, wood items, anything that I've touched, T1, what you wore, destroy book and computer files, remove ID marks like tattoos, remove marks from torture, remove head and hands, which matches the bodies of the Asian male, the toddler, Valerie Mack, and the 2 other Jane Does found on Ocean Parkway. Remove trace evidence like fingerprints and DNA. Wash body inside all cavities. Package for transport. What's scary about this is investigators say he became more organized over the years. And by he, I mean this killer.
Mm-hmm.
The notes say, do not be seen in the area too long. Don't charge gas, meaning like don't charge it on a credit card. Recon for video cameras. And the show says this case is not over. There are, in fact, 14 unsolved murders of women on Long Island. And we don't know about the countless others potentially linked to this suspect, Rex Heuermann, the suspected Long Island serial killer. And on December 17th of 2024, Rex Heuermann was charged with the murder of Valerie Mack. He has since pleaded not guilty to all 7 murder charges. We still don't know what happened to Shannon Gilbert.
Her death was ruled undetermined, but I don't know. Something just doesn't sit right.
Yep.
With that one.
The show states that hairs belonging to Heuermann's wife, her name was Asa, and to his daughter were found on 3 of the Gilgo Beach victims, as well as Valerie Mack. But police believe that these hairs were transferred to Rex prior to the murders, and so they're not suspected of being involved. Now, I was kind of wondering, like, in my mind, I was like, how was it transferred? You can transfer hair to somebody in the washing machine. Like, you know, you can, when a hug, there's lots of ways.
You're sharing a home. It's easy for that to happen. Yeah.
So at this point, the show was released in April of 2025. A trial date for Rex Heuermann has not been set, and the investigation into more cases continues. As I sometimes do in these things, went down the rabbit hole. I need to know more.
Tell me about your rabbit hole.
So according to Today Online, Rex Heuermann is currently sitting in a cell at Riverhead Correctional Facility, and that's in Suffolk County, New York. He's 61. According to the article, Asa, who is Rex's wife, filed for divorce, and the divorce was finalized in March of 2025. I don't know what happened to the house. That was something that I wasn't able to find online. I don't know if she's living in it, if the kids are living in it, if nobody's in it, what has happened to the house. And if convicted, Heuermann faces multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole.
Well, I know you will definitely be watching this one pretty closely. You've been forever.
Yeah, since 2010. I truly remember sitting at my desk in the news station and the AP came up. Remember how it used to come up like in EMPS or AP even? And which is the broadcasting software that we would use.
Like a little notification.
Yep. And it would pop up. I remember one body was found on Gilgo Beach. And then a couple of days later, seeing the AP pop up that 3 more bodies had been found. And at that point, I was like, 3 or more, that's a serial right there. Now, finally, they have somebody who they suspect is responsible. And truthfully, I mean, even just this document that they found on his computer is just, whoa.
Way too many coincidences. I remember when they arrested him, watching that, and that's when I went and started figuring out what was going on, what all of these murders were, because I had not been following it. But what a crazy, crazy story. All of the layers,
Yeah.
from the corruption to the serial killing to just like still wondering what freaked out Shannon so bad that caused her to go into the marsh.
And
Well,
why she was running around saying they're going to kill me and all of those things. And then her body is found.
yeah, what happened?
Uh-huh.
I want to know. Will we
Uh-huh.
ever know?
I don't know. On the show, Shannon's family had hired an attorney to guide them through all of this, basically. And they stated that Shannon's mom passed away, that the attorney was just determined to figure out what happened to Shannon because there's so many unanswered questions.
Yeah, there's a lot.
It's terrible. It's this case is just one of nightmares, truly.
It really is a nightmare case, but again, such an incredible story the way it was put together in this series.
Yes.
Definitely we recommend that you watch it if you haven't already. It's a really good one.
Yeah. It's called Gone Girls, the Long Island Serial Killer on Netflix. And it's a 3-part documentary. Like Tina had said before, the timeline of all of this.
It's not a jumpy one. It's a good story. It's easy to follow. It doesn't feel like you're sitting there for 3 episodes. I mean, there's so much information that you learn as it goes on. It's not a repetitive one. It's got some really great developments as the story unfolds. It's really good.
Yep. And it's not gory.
Nope, it's not gory. If I can watch it, and yeah, I mean, I'm the weenie of us, so.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for being with us for the second part. If you have not yet done so, please hit that subscribe button. It helps us out big time, and it helps you out too because you'll instantly have the episodes downloaded. So the next time you pull up your podcast platform, we will be there.
If you enjoyed this show, if we made you laugh a little, if you learned something new at all, give us 5 stars.
Yes, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
You can also follow us, and we're on socials. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. You can email us, twocrimenewsies@gmail.com. If there's anything special that you would like us to cover, we'll be back next week. Bye.